Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
Love. She used that word last night as though it belonged to somebody else, like she was talking about a distant country I had never visited. I stood there, trying to understand why her voice made it sound so foreign, so far beyond my reach. Then she looked at me, shrugged in that cold, indifferent way she'd perfected, and said, "You weren't my choice." I remember my heart giving a hard thump. I felt no anger in that moment, just a slow, spreading numbness. She was right. I was never her choice, at least not the way it's supposed to be. Even back when we first got together, I sensed she'd been carried along by a sense of duty or convenience. She always called it love, but it felt more like a compromise. As if she stood in a room full of possibilities, weighing pros and cons, finally settling on me because it seemed like the most stable option. I told myself that stability was enough. I told myself real love would bloom later if we tried hard enough. That was my first mistake. When I think about our beginning, I see little hints I chose to ignore. She was all bright smiles and quick affections, but there was a certain distance in her eyes. I'd see it whenever she stared off at something in the distance, like she was longing for a different life. I ignored it, hoping my devotion would be enough to anchor her. And for a while, I thought it worked. We had a comfortable marriage, a decent place, and routines that felt safe. We had inside jokes, half-formed dreams about traveling someday, maybe having a kid. We lived quietly in Chicago, in a neighborhood that suited our combined incomes, and that was that. It wasn't until the night at the bar that my illusions died. It was a Friday, and I was nursing a whiskey in my usual corner seat, glancing at the TV overhead. The place smelled like stale beer and frying oil, like any run-of-the-mill neighborhood bar. A low hum of conversation, the dull clang of glasses, a flickering neon sign in the window. I'd gone there before meeting her for dinner, expecting she'd call or show up. She was out with some coworkers, or so she said. I gave her space because that was the unspoken rule of our marriage. I trusted her. She didn't trust me, or so it felt. I never questioned it. I thought maybe that was what love was, acceptance without boundaries. But that night, the air changed. I felt it before I saw them. A shift, a prickling at the back of my neck. Then I glanced toward the entrance and froze with my glass halfway to my lips. He walked in like he owned the place, tall, confident, with a predatory sway in his step. Even through the dim lighting, I recognized the cocky half-smile. I'd never met him in person, but I knew his face from the fleeting glimpses on her phone. The man who used to be her boyfriend, or so I'd heard. Chris. She always said he was just a friend from her past. I had believed her because I wanted to believe her. There she was, right behind him. Emily, my wife, my partner in this life. Except that night she looked like a stranger. And then she did it. She slipped her arm around his waist, gazed up into his eyes, and he leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't just a peck or a casual brush of lips. It was lingering, full of heat, the kind of kiss that leaves no doubt. My stomach twisted in a violent knot. The bar's overhead lights flickered, reflecting off the line of shot glasses on the counter. Maybe I blinked in disbelief. Maybe I didn't blink at all. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out every other sound around me. I wished I could say I confronted them right there, that I yelled or stormed out. But I didn't. I froze. I felt like a ghost observing a world that had suddenly become unreal. They were so close, her body molded to his, lips parted. There was a faint moan from her, audible to me only because I stood so still, so paralyzed, that I caught every detail. My hand trembled around the whiskey glass, and I had this absurd thought. Don't drop it. Don't break the glass. Don't draw attention. I wanted to be invisible so I could watch everything, and yet not be part of it. Maybe 30 seconds passed. Maybe 5 minutes. Time grew elastic and meaningless. They pulled apart. She laughed, all breathy and intimate, and he whispered something in her ear. I felt sick. Then I realized she might see me at any moment. My eyes darted around, looking for a place to hide or a reason to run. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I watched as she turned her head. Our gazes met. Her lips parted in shock, but the moment ended almost as soon as it began. She quickly yanked her gaze away, whispered something to him, and separated from his arms. I saw the flicker of guilt cross her face, but it wasn't enough to overshadow the flush of excitement that still lingered. I wanted to smash my glass on the bar and scream. Instead, I forced a polite, hollow smile like an idiot. I raised my glass and nodded, as if to toast her from across the room. That forced grin, that small gesture of acceptance, felt like an out-of-body experience. I have no idea why I did it. Maybe to keep the peace. Maybe because I was too cowardly to blow the lid off right then and there. Maybe because seeing them together made me realize I no longer recognized the woman I'd married. She was a stranger, and I needed time to wrap my head around that. She started walking toward me, leaving Chris by the door. He looked a bit unsettled too, but more curious than guilty. His face held that smirk, as though he couldn't decide if he should apologize or gloat. She reached me, lips trembling like she might stammer an apology. But I spoke first. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice too quiet. I tried to keep it steady. "Who were you with?" She swallowed hard, glancing over her shoulder. I can explain." "How many times?" I said. The words tasted like ash. "How many times have you met him behind my back?" Her eyes flared. "It's not like that. This wasn't. It's just—" She couldn't finish. Her gaze dropped to my half-empty glass. "Please, let's talk at home." I looked at her for a long moment. That bar had become a place of suffocating tension. The flickering fluorescent light above us made everyone's face look harsher, uglier. I nodded, set my glass down, and dropped some bills on the counter. Then I walked out without another word. She followed behind me, leaving Chris to stand by the door, watching us with the quiet arrogance of a man who believes he's already won. The ride home was silent. The city lights blurred past the window. I drove, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tight, my knuckles whitening. She stole glances at me, but I kept my eyes forward. The pain felt like a heavy stone in my chest. We got home. I parked. We went inside, each lost in our private storm of emotion. The place smelled like old coffee grounds and the air freshener she insisted on spraying every morning. It felt stifling, oppressive. Once the door shut behind us, she said, it meant nothing in this breathless rush. He kissed me and She let out a defeated exhale. I know how it looked. I stood there in the hallway, listening to her scramble for an explanation. My breathing was too loud in my own ears. "Nothing," I repeated, forcing out a cold laugh. Right, didn't look like nothing to me. I wanted to lash out, to pound my fist on the wall, demand answers in a furious roar. Instead, I heard my own voice, too calm. "You do what you want. I'm not going to fight you." She tried to take my arm. "Robert, please, listen to me." I pulled away, not roughly, just enough to let her know I didn't want her touch right then. "I'm tired. We'll talk in the morning." Then I walked straight into the bedroom, closed the door, and leaned against it with my eyes shut tight. The darkness felt safer than the light. My mind reeled, pictures of them locked together, her lips parted, a hint of a moan. My stomach churned. I remember tasting bile in the back of my throat, forcing it down, and then I remember crawling into bed without even taking off my clothes. The next morning, she was contrite. I woke up to the smell of coffee brewing and the click of her pacing footsteps. She hovered in the kitchen, hair undone, face drawn tight with worry. She looked at me, parted her lips as if to speak, then hesitated. Finally, she said, "It wasn't what it looked like, okay? He was my ex, you know that. We reconnected, but it was just talk. I messed up. I got carried away. It means nothing. I swear. Where have you been? I repeated in a dull voice, picking up the coffee cup. With who? How many times? The same questions, but no anger behind them, just a weariness I couldn't conceal. She winced, shoulders sagging. I had drinks with him twice before. I was upset with us. It's no excuse, but that's the truth. I sipped the coffee. It tasted bitter. So you decided to try him out again, see if the old spark was still there. That's not fair, she said, voice trembling. I was confused. Everything between us has felt hollow. It's like you're not there anymore. I looked at her. For a moment, I almost believed we could salvage this. The guilt in her eyes seemed real. Then I remembered how she clung to him. The parted lips, the soft moan. I set the cup down. You're right. I haven't been there for you, and it looks like he was there for you. Don't say it like that. She tried to touch my shoulder again. I stepped back. I said we'd talk. So here it is. I understand. Maybe we can move forward. But right now, I need time. I can't just pretend we're fine. Let's take it slow. I paused. I'll take some space in the evenings. Call it a course in how to live alone. My attempt at a dark joke fell flat between us. She looked startled. Why would you? Because I said, I'm not sure I can trust you, and you're not sure you actually want me. Her eyes glossed over with tears, but she nodded once. I just need you to understand it was a mistake. So we went on like that for a week, tiptoeing around each other, exchanging half-hearted good morning and good night, trying not to bring up the bar scene. She insisted it was a drunken lapse in judgment. I told her I understood, but everything in me felt raw. Each day, I left the apartment for an hour or two in the evening. Sometimes I just drove around aimlessly, turning the radio off, letting the quiet smother me. Other times I found a place to sit with a cup of coffee, my thoughts swirling in endless circles. A week later, she stood in front of me, eyes shadowed with worry, and said, I'm sorry. Let's start fresh. She even tried to be affectionate, laid her hand on my chest, looked up at me with watery eyes. I love you. It wasn't her words that bothered me. It was how mechanical they sounded. Still, I forced a small nod. Let's try. But in the back of my mind, an ugly voice whispered that it was only a matter of time before she found another reason to see him again. I began to disappear each night, leaving her with that uneasy confusion. She must have wondered if I was seeing someone else, or if I was just punishing her. I don't know. I didn't ask. A strange calmness took hold of me. This was my life, but I watched it from a distance, as though it belonged to someone else. That Friday, I decided to come home early. A part of me thought, let me surprise her, show her I'm willing to meet halfway. Let me be the man she wants, a partner who doesn't vanish at night. So I unlocked the door, stepping into the familiar hallway. The air felt oddly warm. The overhead light in the living room was on, but the place was silent. My chest tightened with an inexplicable sense of dread. Then the door to our bedroom opened, and he stepped out in nothing but a towel. Chris, the same man from the bar. Drops of water clung to his broad shoulders, a cocky grin tugging at his lips. Oh, he said, raising an eyebrow. You're here already. My breath caught in my throat. I stood rooted to the spot, staring at his damp hair, the easy arrogance in his posture. A wave of fury and betrayal coursed through me, far more intense than before. I wanted to smash him through the nearest wall. The tension in the air was suffocating. My ears roared with the sound of my own pulse. Then she appeared behind him, Emily, wrapped in a robe. Her hair was damp, tangling around her face. Her eyes, wide with shock, rimmed with tears even as her lips parted to form an apology or an excuse. I'll never forget the look on her face, panic, guilt, and a flicker of something like heartbreak, as if she realized the final line had been crossed. I couldn't speak. I just walked past them, forcing each step against the furious shaking in my limbs. My mind was blank. In the bedroom, I grabbed a duffel bag and began throwing clothes into it. My hands moved automatically, as if following a predetermined script. She raced after me, voice breaking. "Wait. This isn't. Please, I can explain." "Explain?" I echoed, not looking at her. "Look at you. Look at him." My voice hitched on a sharp edge of disgust. I stuffed another shirt into the bag. "I gave you time. I tried to understand." "Robert," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. It just happened. I don't. He came over, and..." I cut her off. "And you took a shower together? Or was he just modeling towels for you?" My tone was savage, as if I were slashing each word like a knife. She grabbed my arm, desperation in her eyes. "Please, don't leave like this. Don't just walk away." She sobbed, pressing a shaking hand to her mouth. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But I was beyond hearing. My chest felt like a furnace of rage and betrayal, ready to explode. I slung the bag over my shoulder, eyes locked on the doorway. She tried to block me, grabbing at my arm, crying so hard she almost collapsed against me. He hovered in the hallway, silent, uncertain what to do with himself. "Where have you been? With who? How many times?" The words rattled out of my mouth again, mockingly. "You want me to ask you again? Answer me now." I roared so loudly my throat burned. She crumpled, tears splashing onto the floor, making no effort to defend herself. Maybe she knew there was no point. The truth was naked and ugly right there for all to see. A bitter laugh escaped my lips, and I shoved past her. At the apartment door, I paused, something inside me twisting one last time. "You won," I said, meeting her gaze with hollow eyes. "You're free." She stared at me, trembling. Chris stood behind her, no smirk on his face now. They both looked like lost children. I turned away, and as I stepped across the threshold, I felt tears burning in my own eyes. I let them spill, but only for a moment. Then I wiped them away. After that night, I never let them return. I walked out. I don't remember how I got down the stairs, out into the street, or how I found my car. My head pounded. The autumn air smelled like dead leaves and exhaust. The night sky hung heavy, a gaping void that matched the hollowness in my chest. I drove without direction, drifting through the city's veins of concrete and neon. Everything felt unreal. Streetlights glowed overhead, flickering across my windshield. Horns blared. Drunk laughter spilled out of late-night bars. None of it touched me. My world had collapsed into a single question. What do I do now? I ended up parking near the old Chicago Riverwalk. The water smelled faintly brackish. A cold wind rippled across the surface, carrying hints of rotting leaves. I got out of the car, walked to the railing, and stared down at my reflection in the dark water. There was nothing there but a blurred shape that might have been a man once, now left with emptiness. My mind flickered with images. Her body against his, the water droplets on his shoulders, that moment of startled guilt on her face. A nauseating mix of fury and heartbreak rose in me again, but I stayed silent. I refused to let it overwhelm me. Eventually, I slid down to sit on the cold concrete, leaning my back against the metal railing. I fumbled for my phone and stared at it. No messages, no missed calls. Nothing. So that was how it would be. I tried to summon tears again, but all I felt was a dull, leaden ache. Hours passed in that restless state until I realized it was nearly dawn. My limbs were stiff, my mind exhausted. I got back into the car and drove to the cheapest motel I could find, the kind that smelled of stale cigarettes and had flickering lights in the hallway. I paid for a room, stumbled inside, and collapsed onto the scratchy bedspread. I have no idea how long I slept. When I woke, my mouth was dry, my head pounded, and my eyes felt gritty. The morning light forced its way through the thin curtains, revealing stained walls and a battered dresser. I stared at the ceiling, remembering where I was. The reality of my life now. I'd walked out on my wife, on the place we shared, on the illusions I'd clung to for so long. The only thing I felt was a strange sense of relief behind the heartbreak, like I was finally free of a weight I'd been carrying for years. But heartbreak has a way of creeping back in once the numbness subsides. My phone buzzed at some point. A text from her. I opened it. 4 words. Please come talk, please. I turned the phone face down on the bed. My breath shook, and I fought the urge to smash the damn thing. She wanted to talk. That's all she ever did. Words that never matched the actions. I set the phone aside. I needed time to piece myself together before I faced her again. Later, I forced myself up, took a cold shower in the motel's dingy bathroom. The water pressure was weak, and the soap was a sliver from the front desk. My reflection in the tiny mirror looked exhausted, hollow-cheeked, eyes dull. I tried to imagine Emily in that reflection, tried to recall her smile in better times. But it hurt too much. I dried off, got dressed in the same clothes from last night, and stepped outside into the midday sun. The city felt different. Every passing face, every noise, every building felt sharper and more intrusive. As if the world was intruding on my personal grief, I found a diner nearby, slid into a booth, and ordered a black coffee. The waitress eyed my rumpled clothes, my disheveled hair, but said nothing. That's Chicago for you. People mind their own business. The coffee tasted like burnt rubber, but I drank it anyway. In my mind, I replayed that moment at home. Chris in the towel, Emily in her robe, their freshly showered intimacy. My stomach lurched, and I clenched my fists under the table. A flame of rage flickered again. But beneath the anger was a deeper emptiness, the knowledge that we both betrayed each other in different ways. I hadn't cheated on her physically, but I'd abandoned her emotionally. That doesn't justify what she did, but it explained how we got here. I sipped the coffee, stared out the window. A father and daughter walked by, holding hands, laughing. The innocence in that scene cut me to the bone. Once, I'd imagined having kids with Emily, building a life. Now that future was in ruins. I felt a grim acceptance settling over me. Maybe this was always how it was going to end. She once told me I wasn't her choice, and now I finally believed her. My phone buzzed again. Another message from her, more desperate this time. I'm so sorry. Please, come back. Let me explain. Part of me ached to see her face, to demand every detail of how she ended up in that shower with him. But another part of me knew the answers wouldn't matter. The final line was crossed. There's no going back from that kind of betrayal. Still, I wasn't ready to file for divorce that second. So I went to work that Monday as if nothing had happened. Nobody at the office commented on my tired eyes, or the stubble I'd let grow over the weekend. People in corporate environments typically don't pry. A coworker asked if I was okay. I shrugged and said I had a rough weekend. That was enough. Then I buried myself in tasks. Financial projections, spreadsheets, endless data. It's amazing how focusing on numbers can numb the mind. That evening, I returned to the motel. The desk clerk recognized me, gave me a half-sympathetic look. I guess my face told him everything he needed to know about my situation. I lay on the stiff bed again, staring at the ceiling. Memories of better days drifted through my mind. Emily and I laughing over something trivial in the kitchen. Emily excitedly telling me about a new design concept for her job. Our wedding day, her eyes shining with tears when she said, "I do." Had she lied even then? I forced my mind away from that. Sleep eluded me, my eyes burning with exhaustion. My phone vibrated once more. A call from her. This time I answered. I let her speak first. There was a silence, then a trembling breath. "Robert," she whispered, "I know you hate me now." I closed my eyes. "I don't hate you," I said quietly, "but I can't look at you the same way." "Where are you?" she asked, voice thick with tears. "I just want to talk." A part of me wanted to scream. "Where do you think I am?" "I'm in hell." "Where are you?" "Cozy with him." But I swallowed the bitterness. I'm staying at a motel, I answered. I need space. She sniffled. He's gone, Robert. I told him to leave, and I don't want him back. I believed her, strangely enough. But it didn't change anything. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she said, please, just come home. We can talk like adults. My jaw clenched. I'll come get my things tomorrow. We'll talk then. She agreed, and we ended the call. I remained awake for hours, haunted by the image of her with him, by the memory of her words. It meant nothing. The next day, I left work early. My heart pounded as I drove to the apartment. The place I once called home now felt like enemy territory. I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. My key still worked, of course. I pushed the door open, stepping inside slowly. The lights were off. She stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the city. When she heard me, she turned. Her face was drawn, eyes rimmed red. Robert. She spoke my name softly. Emily, I said, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. She gestured for me to sit. Please, I just want to tell you everything. I stayed by the door. I'll stand. She swallowed, fiddling with her hands. It started as texts. He reached out, said he was in town. I was lonely. We met for coffee, then drinks. We kissed at the bar that night. You saw us. I inhaled sharply but said nothing. She took a shaky breath. I thought I ended it. I told him not to contact me again. Then that Friday, he showed up here out of the blue. I know it sounds like a lie, but that's how it happened. I don't know if I was looking for a final thrill or if I was just weak. But her voice broke. We ended up in the shower. And that's when you came home. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Silence thickened between us. The stale air in the room clung to my lungs, making it hard to breathe. My mind flicked through 1,000 accusations, 1,000 possible outcomes. I finally said, I believe you, in a twisted way. But believing you doesn't change what happened. She nodded, tears brimming again. Do you want a divorce? I stared at her, heart pounding. Did I? Part of me wanted to say yes. Another part felt terrified at the thought of finality. In the end, I asked, are you in love with him? No, she said immediately, voice shaking. It was never about love. It was just excitement. I hate myself for it. I hate the look in your eyes right now. I slowly exhaled. I can't forgive you today. Maybe not tomorrow. I paused, focusing on the floor. I might never forgive you, but I don't know if I can walk away just yet. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Whatever it takes, I'll try to fix this. I'll go to counseling. I need space, I said. We'll separate. Let's say a month. I'll find a new place. Stay there. You stay here. After that, we'll decide. She nodded, biting her lip so hard it turned white. Anything. I'm so sorry. Her voice came out broken, raw. For the first time in a long time, she seemed entirely vulnerable. I wanted to hold her, to comfort her, but my arms felt like lead. The memory of him in that towel burned behind my eyelids. I left without packing everything. I couldn't stand to be there another minute. I wanted to turn back and say something, anything, but words failed me. So I drove away, found a short-term rental in a dingy complex near the edge of town. It wasn't a great area, but it was cheap and available. No questions asked. I moved in with a suitcase, some clothes, and my laptop. It felt surreal, like stepping onto the set of a life that wasn't mine. The place smelled like bleach and stale carpet. The paint on the walls was peeling, revealing old water stains. I told myself it was just temporary. In the weeks that followed, I went to work, came home to that cramped rental, tried to find a routine. Emily texted me often, long messages about how she was attending therapy, how she missed me, how she was working on herself. Sometimes I read them. Sometimes I deleted them unread. On the weekends, I met a coworker for beers just to avoid sitting alone in that apartment with my thoughts. Occasionally, in the small hours of the night, I remembered the feeling of her skin against mine, her laughter in the mornings. My chest would tighten with longing, and I'd curse my own weakness. But I never called her. I needed time. I needed my dignity. She tried to see me in person once, showing up outside my building. She knocked on my door with trembling knuckles, tears in her eyes. "Robert, just a conversation, please." I stared at her from behind the threshold. She looked so small, but the memory of her betrayal loomed between us like a wall. I turned her away, gently but firmly. She left, sobbing. I hated that sound, but it had to be done. Days blurred into weeks. The pain turned from a raw ache to a dull background hum. I found myself able to function better at work. I even started taking early morning runs by the river, letting the cold air bite my lungs and numb my thoughts. Sometimes I could almost believe I was healing, that I could leave that entire chapter behind. Then one night, I received a call from Chris. His number was unknown, but his voice was unmistakable, smooth, self-assured. "Robert," he said, "we need to talk." I almost hung up on him, but curiosity, or maybe masochism, made me stay on the line. "Why the hell would I want to talk to you?" I spat. "I just think you should know the truth," he said. "All of it." I gritted my teeth. "Is there more than what I saw with my own eyes?" He paused, then sighed. "I'm not proud of what happened. But Emily, she's not the villain you think she is. She was hurting, man. You both were. I just took advantage of that." My rage simmered. "Save it. I don't need your fox sympathy." He sounded almost contrite. "Look, I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness. I'm calling because I wanted to clear the air. I'm leaving Chicago. I wanted you to know. I won't be hanging around to complicate things." I let out a bitter laugh. "You've done enough damage." "I know," he said quietly. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I guess I just hope you figure it out. Whatever it is you need to do." He ended the call. I stood there, phone in hand, a swirl of conflicting emotions in my chest. A part of me wanted to chase him down, throw a punch, break his nose. Another part just wanted him gone. In the end, I let it go. A month turned into 6 weeks. Then 2 months. We never filed for divorce, never made it official. We just stayed apart in limbo. Emily kept sending me updates, her therapy progress, her regrets, her longing to fix things. Bit by bit, I found myself softening. The ache of betrayal never left, but I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something out of the ruins. Finally, after nearly 3 months of separation, I agreed to meet her in a neutral space, a quiet little cafe near the park. She arrived first, sitting at a corner table with a coffee that had already gone cold. When I walked in, she stood up, hesitated, then sat down again. She looked older somehow, more fragile, as if these months had aged her. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, no makeup except maybe a hint of mascara. Her hands were clasped on the table as though she was afraid they might shake. I sat across from her. We gazed at each other for a long moment. Silence. Then she said, in a trembling voice, "I'm glad you came." I nodded, folded my hands. "I'm here to talk." I said, "That's all." Her eyes shimmered with tears, but she swallowed them back. "That's enough for me." She paused, exhaling slowly. "I just want to say, I take responsibility for what I did. There's no excuse. I was selfish." I waited. She wiped at her eyes, continued, "I know I hurt you more than I can ever make up for. But I also know that we had problems before Chris came back into my life. We both built walls. We got comfortable with distance. She wasn't wrong." I stared at the tabletop. The grain of the wood was scratched, probably from too many customers sliding plates and cups across it. I flexed my hands, forcing myself to keep calm. "I did pull away," I admitted. I guess I thought you'd always be there, no matter what. She sniffled. Maybe if we had fought more, or been more honest, we wouldn't be here now. But regrets don't fix anything. All I know is, I still want you. I still love you in the way I can. And if you'll let me try, I want to rebuild this marriage. She reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. The warmth of her skin was familiar, 1,000 memories swirling behind that simple gesture. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. My thoughts spun. Could I trust her again? Could I trust myself to not resent her forever? The cafe chatter buzzed around us, a couple behind me laughing, an espresso machine whirring, a barista calling out orders. We sat amid the swirl of mundane life, our eyes locked, each breath heavy with possibility. You told me once, I said quietly, I wasn't your choice. She flinched. I said that in anger. I was lashing out. I felt like you'd never chosen me either. Not really, not wholeheartedly. I closed my eyes, recalling how many times I'd retreated into work, how often I avoided real conversations with her. I'd always thought love was about tolerance and quiet acceptance, but maybe that passivity was the reason she felt alone. I opened my eyes. What if we tried to choose each other now? Honestly, with no illusions? She let out a shaky breath, nodded. I want that more than anything. We spoke for hours that day, sifting through our history, our fears, our regrets. It was painful, but there was a raw honesty to it that felt different from before. We left that cafe without a definite answer, but with a sense of possibility. I moved back into the apartment 2 weeks later, after she insisted on removing anything that reminded her of Chris, including the bedding, certain pictures on her phone. She changed her phone number. She said it was a fresh start. I still felt uneasy, but I agreed. Our first nights together again were awkward, like we were two strangers sharing a bed. She asked if she could hold me. Sometimes I let her. Sometimes I lay awake, rigid, haunted by images of her betrayal. When she cried, I'd hold her hand, feeling more pity than warmth. But day by day, we struggled forward. We went to couples counseling, learned to voice our resentments and fears. It was exhausting, draining. There were times I wanted to bolt, times I regretted not filing for divorce. But something made me stay, a stubborn hope that maybe we could transform this wreckage into something stronger. Some days were good. We found ourselves laughing over a silly TV commercial or cooking a meal together, like we used to in the early days. Then the memories would creep up again, darkening the mood. We'd talk it out, or sometimes just sit in silence until the tension eased. It was a delicate dance between love and pain, trust and suspicion. One night, after a particularly rough counseling session, she came to me, tears in her eyes, and said, I never realized how lonely you felt. I always thought you were the strong one, the steady one. I stroked her hair, a hollow ache in my chest. I was lonely, I murmured, even when you were right there next to me. She nestled against me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of genuine closeness. It didn't erase the betrayal, but it showed me that perhaps we could create a new bond, one where we acknowledged our weaknesses instead of hiding them. Months passed. We kept going to therapy, kept talking, kept stumbling through the shattered pieces of our marriage. My anger softened into a guarded caution. I wasn't naive. I knew one day we might fail. But for the moment, we were both choosing each other in a more genuine way than we ever had before. One afternoon, I found an old photo tucked behind some books on a shelf. It was from our wedding day. We looked young, laughing at something the photographer said. My suit jacket was slightly off-kilter, and her hair was adorned with daisies. The memory felt bittersweet. I thought about the bar scene, the kiss, Chris in a towel, all the nights spent in that dingy motel, the endless swirl of doubt. Then I looked at the photograph again. That day, we'd believed in forever. Maybe that forever was gone, replaced by something more fragile, but also more real. I'm not sure what the future holds. All I know is we're still together for now, forging a path through pain and regret. I still have moments when I can't look at her without remembering the betrayal. She still has moments when she worries I'll never fully trust her again. But every morning, we make a choice to try. Sometimes, late at night when she's asleep, I lie awake and remember how it felt to see them at the bar, their lips locked in a moment that shattered my world. The pain is still there, an old bruise that flares if I press on it too hard. But I haven't let those tears return. Maybe that's good, or maybe it's just one more layer of armor around my heart. Either way, it's the life I have. And for now, I'm choosing to live it. She once said, "You weren't my choice." Maybe I wasn't, back then. But now, in this uncertain space of second chances, we're both deciding whether we can truly choose each other, knowing all the damage that's been done. It's a different kind of love. It's definitely not simple, but it's ours, for as long as we can stand to keep fighting for it.